does research tell us about the psychology of politics? Well, it turns out there's been a fair amount of work in this fascinating arena, from examining the personality traits of politicians to the psychology of voting, and even the different views of morality held by political liberals and conservatives. Joining us now is Dr. Bart Rossi. He is a political psychologist, and we welcome you to Ebru today.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, you have so many different personalities, and you sometimes wonder, and you've got different points of view, no wonder they can't agree on anything in Washington.
Well, that's true, but I wrote an article on a winning personality. And,
okay.
I think that what you've seen in the election cycle is that one candidate, in fact, had a winning personality. Somebody who was comfortable in his own skin, someone who presented himself in a consistent way, never dismissed or discarded anyone, and also presented himself as pretty much as a good listener, someone who, if you met him on the street, he'd listen, and that would, of course, be the president. On the other side, I think you see Romney, who I feel made a real mistake in the campaign. He should have presented himself as a business person, but he came across as an individual who really didn't relate well, and his personality really didn't transcend politics and reach to people.
He didn't look friendly.
He
didn't look a little standoffish to me.
He didn't look friendly, and he didn't look like he could relate to people and their issues.
Well, let's talk about the psychology of governing in this very polarized climate right now. And we've got so many different issues. Right now, let's just take gun control. Just if you can talk to us just about how this is such a polarized issue, how does that play into the politics? Well,
I actually do a segment usually on guns in America. And what really bothers me about weapons and guns in America, even though I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, I'm not against the Second Amendment.
Okay.
I don't think the psychology is right to take the rights away from people, okay? But on the other hand, I see that we have in our society people who are disturbed personalities, people who have explosive personalities, dangerous personalities. They have not yet been arrested. They have not yet been in a psych hospital. So we have weapons that they can purchase, and yet they're dangerous, and they have what we call personality disorders.
As we all obviously saw in Newtown.
Exactly. And we have people that we have what psychologists call retained anger that generates into rage, and then that rage then turns into an action against society, as in the Connecticut shooting. So how do we put this together with these dangerous folks in our society, and at the same time have weapons and assault weapons? How do we do that? How do we come up with a plan that makes sense to accommodate this situation?
Well, how do we do that?
A couple suggestions. One would be certainly to prioritize mental health.
Okay.
And have folks at an early age realize that psychologists can really help people who have issues, and have parents, mothers and fathers realize that this cognitive behavioral stuff that psychologists do actually does work. Number one. And then,
what about, now you support the Second Amendment, but what about a ban on the assault rifles?
Well, I don't think that the forefathers, when they wrote the Second Amendment, were thinking about machine guns or assault weapons or magazines with 50 bullets. I don't think they were thinking about that. So I think there needs to be a balanced approach. I agree with the president on this, that it has to be a balanced approach. We need to prioritize mental health, but also limit the sales of these assault weapons that can kill so many people.
Okay. Let's go back to Washington. I think we should put you in Washington right now to figure that whole issue out. Let's go back down to Washington and talk about the personality traits of politicians.
Right.
What makes a person want to be a politician?
Well, you'd have to think first that they'd have to be very egocentric. You would have to think that they were really very much into themselves, and they want to promote their own views and ideas. For me, as a psychologist, I also think, though, that I've met enough people in the field who really want to make a difference. I don't want to be overly optimistic about it, but I would say that I do see folks that really do want to transcend politics, make a difference. Unfortunately, those folks sometimes are beaten back by the realities of politics, though.
But do you think that because of these obvious, we wouldn't say that, I might say some people have a narcissistic side, yes?
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got a couple different sides, a couple different big personalities coming to the table. Is that why we are seeing such a problem with compromise?
Well, I think I think compromise is tough for some of these individuals. I think you're right. I think it's beyond just taxes and all the stuff that we hear about. It is about personality. Some of these folks don't want to give the president anything, and I think that's wrong. It's almost like a reversal of what happened with George W. Bush, where whatever he said, there were individuals who didn't want to listen to that either.
Sure.
So it goes both ways. But With the president, it doesn't matter what he says sometimes. They just want to disagree with him. And I think that's unfortunate.
And if you could give anybody a little advice on the art of compromise, what would you tell them?
I tell them, first off, we all compromise. With our wives, our kids, our friends, we compromise every day. So what we need to do in terms of politics and political figures, we need to think about what you would give, where you're going to give and where you're going to take, and try to think about the fact that everyone needs to compromise.
Well, again, Dr. Bart Rossi, we're going to send you down to Washington, D.C. Let's see if you can talk to the House Speaker and the President about compromise.
We'll see
Always
if we can do it.
a pleasure and very fascinating stuff. Thanks for coming on the show.
Nice seeing you.